Hi there, it's Jennifer, and I'm here today for another video in my series on long distance walking. As you guys know, I'm training to do a full marathon in January as a walker, and I'm here today to talk about training mistakes. So, you know, I have been doing races for a long time. I have been doing them for probably going on 10 years. Those of you who have been watching this series know that I have done 20 half marathons and I've done 4 full marathons. So this one coming up in January will be my 5th full marathon, 26.2 miles. And you'd think that I'd have it all down in terms of training and that I wouldn't make mistakes, but I make mistakes. So I thought I would share some of those things with you, because if you're trying to get your mileage up or you're thinking about doing a race, you just might want to think about some of these things. So the first thing I would say that is a mistake that can be made is overconfidence. And when you first start doing races, you won't be confident. I wasn't confident. And so I was always wanting to make sure I was doing everything by the book and drinking what I was supposed to drink in the weeks leading up and eating the right kinds of food and getting out the door just the right number of days of the week and all that kind of stuff. And then I had done 3 half marathons and a full marathon. So I was getting pretty confident in myself. And so I was training for my second half marathon, and I went out to do, I think it was 14 miles, which when you've done 26.2, 14 doesn't seem like a lot, right? And so I went out, I just went out, and I had kind of not been thinking too much about some things I should have. First of all, it was a day that was warm. It was in October, but I was living in Phoenix, and still gets up into the 90s in October. And so it was warm, and my sister-in-law, who I was training with, had a baby shower or something to go to in the morning, and so she couldn't go until later. So we went out a little bit later, so the sun is high, it was the hottest part of the day, and we go out for 14 miles. There was one thing. Then I also had kind of woken up that morning and I was feeling kind of protein starved. You know how some days you just feel like you need to have some protein? And so I got up in the morning and I ate like sausage and eggs. Bad idea, you guys. Do not have a ton of protein on the morning of a race. You can have some, you need to think about things that digest easily. So if you want to have some Greek yogurt, which it has protein, but it would digest easier, that's okay. You know, some people will have like maybe 1 egg. I just don't do eggs or meat or anything like that normally. But I got up and I was pretty protein starved, and I just, you know, I was just feeling overconfident. And so, anyway, but that's another tip on mistakes that you can make, and that's eating too much protein or the wrong kind of protein before you go out for a long walk. And so anyway, I just felt awful that day. I actually overheated as a result of that, and really just felt horrible. I'd never experienced that before. I'd trained for, a full marathon in the summer. actually did my first full marathon in San Diego. It was a pretty hot day. Never had I experienced what I did that day when I went out on, in the hottest part of the day, and also had a lot of protein. So, overheating is another thing that if you let yourself overheat, that's another big mistake that you can make. Think about getting out as early as possible if it's hot weather. You just want to make sure that you're in light clothing. You also want to make sure that you have stuff with you, like something to drink. Obviously, you need to hydrate. And it needs to be cold, just to kind of cool yourself off. If you have access to some ice water at some point, to dump it on your head. So maybe you're going out for 10 miles, but you can circle back after 5 miles to where your car is or where your house is. Dump some cold water on your head before you go out and do the last half. You need to really be thinking about not allowing yourself to overheat, because you could feel like you've got just like a hot metal rod going through your head and just burning your head. I mean, really, it feels like that if you allow yourself to overheat. So going along with that, make sure that you're hydrating properly. Just because you've been walking for a while, you are not immune to needing fluids in your body. So you need to make sure that you hydrate properly, and also that you are getting proper electrolyte replacement. So you can't just drink water, because it flushes all the sodium out. So you need to have sodium, magnesium, stuff like that in your system so that you can actually hold on to and use the fluids that you put in. Another training mistake you can make is not preparing for the terrain that you're going to be in. So if you are at low elevation and your race is going to be at a higher elevation, you're going to wear yourself out. So it's a good idea to take some of the time that you're training and go to a higher elevation where you can train and get your body acclimated to that. You know, I used to live in the South and nobody talked about elevation because there really wasn't that much difference from one place to another. If you live in the West, then you know what I'm talking about with what a difference elevation makes. And from Phoenix to Flagstaff, I used to live in Phoenix, now I live in Flagstaff, there's a 5,000 feet elevation difference. And so you just have to make sure that you're preparing for that. Now, if you're going from high elevation to low elevation, you already have your training spot on your side because you've already been training in the hard place, and then you go to the easier place. If you are going to be doing a trail race, then you need to have some practice and training on trails instead of doing everything on nice, smooth sidewalks or perfectly paved roads. Because when you're doing something on a trail, you're going to have bumpier trails. You're going to have rocks. You could, if you're not paying attention to where you're going, you could sprain your ankle. In a race that I recently did, there was a rock sticking up out of the ground, and the end of my shoe caught it, and thankfully I was able to catch myself. I looked ridiculous in the process, but I almost did a face plant because of it. But you just kind of want to practice with the terrain. Now, on the flip side, let me just tell you that you do not want to do all of your training on dirt or on trails if you're going to be doing a race that's all on pavement. We have beautiful trails around here where I live, and so it's so tempting to just go off into the forest and, you know, do all of our training out there. But this marathon that I'm going to be doing in January is in Phoenix, in the city, on pavement, the whole thing. And if you don't train on that hard surface and you're training on dirt, even if it's hard packed dirt, it gives more than pavement does. If you don't train for that, then you're going to be in some big trouble. So just make sure that whatever that place is where you're going to be doing this long distance when you're doing training, that you kind of ease yourself into that. Another thing is preparing for the weather in different places. So we are going to be going, like I said, to Phoenix for this full marathon, and we're training in Flagstaff where it's very nice and cool. We get snow here. Yes, it's Arizona, but we get snow. The weather is already starting to cool down here. It's the middle of September, and in Phoenix, it's still going up to 97. So really, really drastically different temperatures. And in January, when we do this race, we will have been training in probably snow, wind, ice, colder weather. We'll be layering things, thicker socks, all of that. And then we're going to go down to Phoenix, just a 2-hour drive away, but the highs will be in the 70s probably on the day of our race. And so if we have that drastic temperature change, it really could adversely affect us. And so what we're planning to do, my friend Susan and I, is we're planning to go down twice before the race to do longer training walks. So when we get up to 18 miles and 20 miles, we're going to drive down there to do those because we need to get acclimated to the heat or the warmer temperatures, because 70s, you know, that's not terribly hot, but when you're out there for 6.5 hours walking 26.2 miles, it is a big deal. So we'll be going down there because we'll want to see if we have enough electrolyte replacement. We're going to want to get an idea of how much water we're going to need to consume, all that kind of stuff. We need to know how much we're sweating and, you know, all of those different things. But you really need to make sure that you're preparing for the terrain and preparing for the weather in the place that you're going to go. And if you don't, that is definitely a mistake. The last thing I'm going to mention is a mistake that I recently made, and that is doing inconsistent training. So last December, I did a 15K, so that's 9.3 miles. I was doing a really good job of doing all the stuff leading up to it, getting out the door 3 days a week to do 3 or 4 miles, and then on the weekend getting out to do increasingly farther distances. The race went really well. Well, then my half marathon, so that was like beginning of December. So then I had a half marathon that was in the middle of January. And things got busy. I didn't always get out the door the way I was supposed to, but I kept up with my longer distances. So even though maybe I only walked a short, you know, a 3 miler one day this week and 2 days the next week, I would get out and do 8 miles on the weekend or 10 miles. And then I had a week and a half or maybe 2 where I just didn't walk during the week because things got crazy at work and the weather was kind of nuts here, and so I just didn't get out. So we were going down to Phoenix for Christmas to spend Christmas with my husband's family, and I decided this will be the perfect time for me to get in my longest training walk, which was 12 miles. And so, you know, beautiful weather and all that, why not take advantage of that? Got up in the morning, went out, I did 12 miles, felt pretty good, and then the next day, I just didn't feel very good. I mean, my hip kind of hurt a little. And then it, you know, so I kind of just took it easy a little bit, tried to walk a little, but kind of took it easy. So then we get to the race, and my friend and I usually trot a little bit at the beginning of every mile. We started to trot the first mile, and I thought, oh, something does not feel right. So then we stop and we walk the rest of that mile. We come to the second mile, we start trotting again. And I finally just said to my friend, I don't think I can run. I mean, my hip is hurting me. And so our biggest thing was, we knew at that point that we were going to do a full marathon the next year. And so I just thought, I don't want to go into this year with an injury. Well, like it or not, I did go into the year with an injury because my hip was hurting really badly. And so after that half marathon, we finished. We went really slow. This is my slowest half marathon I've ever done, but I didn't want to injure myself. And so, so I came back, thought I would just rest and not walk too much, took about a month off, started to get back into it again. My hip was still hurting me. So in February, I went to a physical therapist, and I went to physical therapy for 2 months. And he just said, you know, you're not as young as you used to be. And he said, sometimes he said sometimes, and he's a really nice guy, so he wasn't being mean. He just said, you know, sometimes we do things when we're younger and we can get away with it. And when we do those things when we're older, we're just being stupid. So I was being stupid, and that was that I wasn't training consistently, and then I'd go out and do a long walk. And why did I go out and do the long walk? Because I've done so many of these, 12 miles, I mean, big deal. But it is a big deal if you have not been getting out the door for those shorter distances. So don't just think that you're invincible and you can do anything. You really need to stick to the program. No matter how long you've been walking, no matter how far you've been walking, you need to make sure that you're sticking to a consistent program so you don't hurt yourself. It did take me a few months to recover from this. I am recovered from it now that we're in September, thank goodness. But yeah, I could have avoided all of that trouble if I had just been consistent in my training. So I'm sure there are things I'm leaving out, but all of this to say, there's good information out there about what to do to build up and increase your mileage when you're a walker. There's good information about training for half marathons and full marathons. Take advantage of that great information. Of course, I have a lot of videos I've done. I've been doing them since, well, I don't know, when did I start doing these? January, I guess. So I have a lot of stuff like that. But just remember that I am not a healthcare professional. I'm not a coach. but I've done a lot of races and I have been coached. So I'm just putting this disclaimer out there that you should always get your information about training from experts. There are great books out there. You can find tons of information from reliable sources online. So make sure to take advantage of those things. Yeah, and just have fun, be healthy, but be careful. Take care of yourself. Hopefully this series has been helpful for you so far. I still got some videos I'm going to be doing. I'll be taking this series through until leading up to the marathon. Actually, I'm going to do a vlog of the full marathon. And yeah, so we'll be in January. I'll be done with this series, but I hope that you'll follow along with me until then. Also, if you have questions, I would love to hear your questions. Remember, I'm not an expert, but I do have lots of experience. So if you have anything you want to ask me, I can either answer your question or point you in the right direction. So all of this to say, hope you guys are staying healthy. Thanks so much for following along on this, and I hope I'll see you again on Busy Being Jen. Hit that button if you're not a subscriber, and YouTube will let you know when I upload new videos. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.